the morning. Actually, yeah, it's 1 in the morning on Sunday, March 15th, 2026. I'm doing my Zazoo report nice and early. Getting right to it. Actually, I did my Facebook post last night for Pi Day. You know, if you've been around here a while, you know my style. You can just imagine. I had a lot of fun talking about pie and pie is it's in the book. It's one of my favorite subjects. All kinds of pie. I mean, with my French Canadian heritage, everything was pie, and not the circumference of the circle, 3.14, which is really, there's a separate National Pie Day, which I think is near Thanksgiving. It's in the fall. But this is Pi Day, P-I. For all you math geeks out there, you know that it's that number, 3.14, but it's not, it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. And all the engineers in my family, all those engineers that I went with, they used to be able to recite the whole thing. The electrical engineer, my son's, he taught it to them. 3.14 is all you need to know. It's close enough. Okay. Anyway, fourth Sunday. Yeah. So, I'm all set. St. Patty's Day is this week. I already made my corned beef and cabbage. I made it a couple of nights ago, and my place still smells like cabbage. Even though I put out a big dish of white vinegar, like my mom used to do. I'm still getting over this cold I had. What a week. I think I overdid it. Whenever I overdo it, I do too much, writing. My body just kind of rebels, and I get this cold out of nowhere. I went out like one day, and it was warm. I wore a coat and everything, but it's the change of seasons. March, April, I get a cold. I got rid of it. I took liquids and lots of rest and all that stuff, and then I kind of get rid of it, and then, then if I overdo it, it comes back. So I got to be careful. So. I did make the corned beef and cabbage, though, and, the only thing is it was a nice lean cut of meat that I got, and I did use a lot of the potatoes, but then they got really mushy. I cooked it in the Instapot, and it was a much smaller piece I got this year. So I don't have as much left over for hash. I'll have a couple more servings in the freezer. Two nights was my limit. I couldn't eat it more than that. So I stuck the rest of it in the freezer. And I might, I'll probably just have it for leftovers. Maybe make a little hash with the potatoes but it gets stuck in your teeth. And I can never slice it just right. I slice it one way, and I think that's against the grain. I said, it doesn't look right. So I slice it the other way. So it's going all different ways. And then it gets stuck in my teeth, then I gotta floss. Maybe it's because I'm not Irish. Maybe Irish people know how to slice it right. I don't know. I'm sure if I asked the AI bot, it would be able to regurgitate something from Google about it. The thing is, you gotta see it for what it is. AI is like that stupid kid in your class who copies off your paper because he doesn't know anything. He didn't study, and he's never going to be that bright because he doesn't have any of his own ideas. That's what AI is. Don't worry about it. I'm unimpressed. Anyway, so my son, our oldest son, UConn men, too bad, they lost 52. St. John's 72, UConn 52 was the final score. Oh well. I'm not sure if the women played yet. The UConn women were doing really well. I don't know. Maybe, hopefully they won. We'll see. Yeah, so, how do I talk about that? Yeah, my oldest son, because he's in Vietnam, he made it with his girlfriend, and they went to what they call the Miami of Vietnam. It's called Da Nang, Danang, Danang, and it's a beach kind of town. It's supposed to be really modern and nice, so they went there. So, and my other son's up in Maine this weekend. I don't know. So it's funny because before I got the text about him being in Maine, I had been thinking about my cousin's bakery. She has a bakery up in Maine, and I was thinking, oh, what's that vacation we took? What's the town we went to that summer that was near Portland? We rented a cabin in 2012 in Little Sebago Lake, which is in Gray, Maine. And so I was just thinking about that, and that was the year we actually went to her bakery, my cousin's bakery. She wasn't there, but she owns it. She runs it with her husband, and we had breakfast there with the boys. So it's funny that he's in Maine, and I was just thinking that it's not funny how that works. Pisces season, I tend to be very intuitive. I'm watching the show with the Long Island medium, the Long Island with the hair, Teresa Caputo. It's great. She's got this new show on Amazon where she goes around on her tour bus, and she talks all over the country, and she does her readings. It's like her show Long Island Medium, but it's all new shows, and it's about her kids who are grown up now, and her daughter has a baby, but the daughter won't move out of the house. She was born in Teresa. She's a Gen Xer. She's 2 years. She was born in 1967, so she's 2 years younger than me. And I tried to guess what sun sign she was. Her. I said she's got to have some Gemini, and probably some Scorpio. She's probably got Cancer in there too, and Pisces. And she has all of those. I think her sun's in the 8th house, which is, all about it's ruled by Scorpio, the 8th house. But she's a Gemini. So, if you think about it, Gemini sees both sides, and that's what she does. She communicates with people who've lost loved ones, and they come through, and I did her chart. It's all right there in her chart. She's got Pisces. She got Moon in Cancer, which is perfect for that, because Cancer is the family, and the Moon is the Moon rules Cancer. It's a natural place to have that. So, but yeah, Gemini, boy, can she talk! But she's so much fun. She's just, she's got to have that air, because she's bubbly and she's. That made so much sense. She's good at what she does. It's very entertaining. I put Frasier on hold. I was watching Frasier, and I said, I'm going to watch these shows first, and because it's Pisces season. Then I'll go back to Frasier. So I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I always wonder. I always worry, am I going to run out of things to watch? But the universe always sends me good stuff, so I shouldn't worry about that. Sun's in Pisces, Moon is in Aquarius. My Moon is in Aquarius, 3rd quarter Moon. So I guess we're coming up on a new moon soon. I guess we got Mercury and Mars in Pisces. The Sun is not exactly, but it's conjunct the Saturn, Neptune. So Saturn, Neptune, and the Sun are going to be exact pretty soon. So that's something. And the Moon is Moon's conjunct Pluto, which is interesting. That's good for intuition. for delving deep. So that's interesting. Venus is in Aries, Jupiter, Cancer, Uranus is going to be going into Gemini soon. That's interesting. I didn't get a whole lot astrologically today, except for those things. The sun, Saturn. That's interesting, and Neptune. So that's a big thing. So that's that's kind of appropriate now that I think about it for the readings. Zazoo, get started. Yeah, I guess we get started. Now the first book of Samuel. Was there two? Are there two books of Samuel? What's his one? Samuel in the Old Testament. He was a prophet. His name meant God has placed, because his mother, who was Hannah, had prayed for a baby, and that's what they named it, because then when she, it was as if God had intervened and placed the baby in her womb, so that he could fulfill this prophecy, this purpose, that he was supposed to do, which was he was a key in the transition from King Saul to King David. So he was necessary. He went out. God said, "Go fill your horn with oil, Samuel, and go out to Jesse of Bethlehem, and the king, the new king, is going to be chosen from among Jesse's sons." So he goes out, and Samuel thought he saw the first son, Eliab. He saw the first son. He's all tall. He makes an impressive appearance. He thought he was the one. Oh, that must be anointed. Look at him. God says, "Do not judge as man judges by appearance." God looks into the heart. So he said. So he looked at all the next 7 sons. Yeah, same thing. So and then he says, "Is that all? Is that all your sons?" And Jesse said, "No, there's still the youngest one. He's out tending the sheep." So they went, and he said he was a ruddy youth, handsome to behold, making a splendid appearance. So there, God said, "No, that's the one." So Saul anointed him, and it said he was, in the presence of all the other brothers. It must have been tough for him to go home that night. "Yeah, who do you think you are, anointed one?" We don't read about these things, but you can imagine, right? The youngest of 8, 9, I don't know, 7 plus 8. He was the youngest of 9 sons, all the sons. He never had daughters, but anyway. The Spirit rushed upon David, so that's interesting. It's interesting because I was thinking about my cousin, whose first name is, I have an uncle David, and he named his first son after him, but his first name was David, and then his middle name was something else. So he named John. So, but he goes by John. But his first name is like his dad, and his birthday he's a Pisces. It's coming up. Whether he already had his birthday, I think it was maybe last week. It's around this time. He's a Pisces, 3 years younger than me. So he's 2 and a few months. Yeah, 2 years, 4 months younger than me. 1968, Gen X. So I thought of him today. So I don't know if he listens to my report, but I was thinking, happy birthday to him. He's going to be, 58. So, yeah. So this is the Psalm of David. Psalm 23. And you know this one. Even if you're Catholic, or even, a lot of Christians use this psalm at funerals. They always read this. The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall fear, about walking in the dark valley, and In verdant pastures he gives me, I lay down and gives me repose. Refreshes by restful waters, he refreshes me and all that. Though I walk in the dark valley, I fear no evil, for he is by my side with his rod and staff. So there's the sheep, the shepherd, symbolism again. I like this. He spreads my table in the sight of my foes. He anoints my head, my cup overflows. I love that. I love that. And goodness and kindness follow me all the days of my life. Yeah, living in the house of the Lord for years to come. So that's, you want to read that. It gives you, if you're looking at the news and you're like, this is the theme for the week. You can look at everything going on in the world, and you can let it make you jaded and skeptical, and you can let that, take over you. Or you can choose, you can choose love, choose the power of your soul, right? The lightness of your soul, which is not burdened by all this heavy stuff, right? Your soul is eternal. It's it rises above all this earthly conflict. It sees beyond that. So the more you can tune into the light, into what makes you feel happy, because that's how if time just, you lose all track of time and you're doing the thing that raises your energy, that's how you know. That's how you deal with it, right? Spend more time doing that and less time tuning in or spending time with people who bring you down. Things that bring you down. Things that want to draw you to one side or the other, right? Extremes. Stay away from that. Okay. So then we have the letter of Paul to the Ephesians. Paul says, he's talking to the Ephesians, the people. He said, you were darkness, but now you're light, in the Lord. He said, live in the light, and produce, it produces good truth, the truth, goodness, and righteousness. Try to find out what is pleasing to God, what God wants you to be doing with your life. You find that out. Don't take part in the works of the dark, right? If something doesn't sound right to you, don't do it, right? Makes you feel bad, don't do it, right? Stay away from that and go toward the things that, expose the works of the dark. He says that we're not just supposed to, he said, in secret, it's shameful to even speak of these things that are done, right? The works of darkness. But if you expose them and bring them out into the light, as you can, in a way that, shines light on things that are not of God, or not of the light, then once they're out in the light, then they become, right? They're exposed, so they have no power, right? And the light takes over at that point, right? They're only shameful and when they're in the darkness, but you shine a light on these things, right? So the more people do that, the more truth, the more righteousness, the more good will be in the, you will be aware of that in the world, right? It's how you choose to look at things that determines, what you're going to be seeing more of these days. Do you, choose to be skeptical and only believe what you see with your eyes, these eyes? Or do you look with your third eye? Do you look from, at the world the way God sees it? Not that we, God sees, the whole thing, but we are each, in the image of God, in the spirit of God, right? We are, our point of view is necessary in all of God's plan. So we have to, the way we see goodness in the world is what we have to project. We have to put that out there, right? What do you see that's holy to you? What do you think is holy? What lights you up? And that is what you have to shine forth into the world. That's all you can do, right? I can only be Zazoo Plazz. I don't know how to be anybody else. God wants me to be me, so. But if everybody did that, then the totality of, consciousness would be represented. You see, that's what the Christ light is. Jesus brought that to earth. It's kind of hard to explain this, but maybe you get it. If not, whatever. I'm just speaking my mind today. You don't have to buy into it. It's just I'm spouting off. I do this a lot. Anyway, it's humor. And it isn't, but it is, because humor is one of the highest. It's a very high vibe. If you're laughing, your energy's going to go up. So whatever. Okay. So the gospel is awake, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. Yeah. It says John chapter 9. So it's the one where Jesus cures the blind man, right? Sees this guy sitting out there, and he's blind from birth, and the apostles, are asking Jesus, who sinned, his parents or him to make him blind? And Jesus said, no, it is not a sin, but so that the works of God can be made visible through this man. See? You see? Okay, that's weird. Okay, so then he spits on the ground, and he takes the clay, smears it on his eyes, tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. So he says, there's some urgency to what Jesus is doing, because he can probably see what's coming up. He says we have to do the works of God by day, because time is coming, nighttime is coming when no one can work. So, maybe that was foreseeing the future. Yeah, that's interesting. So, in other words, nighttime is, maybe he was talking about his second coming, or a time when we're going to have to make a decision, right? You have to, he knew he only had so much time to, that he would be, he knew that he would be, that he knew about his death and resurrection. He knew that he was meant to die and rise again. But he knew he only had so much time, to do these works, right? So that somebody could see it. The people, his apostles, the ones who were to write this down and become witnesses of it. So he only had so much time to do this. So he did this on the Sabbath, which, the Pharisees are always getting bent out of shape about people doing things on the Sabbath. They're like, oh, who's this sinful man who's doing these works? They felt threatened by him, of course, because he's going around healing people, and people are starting to follow him instead of the old ways, right? So they called his parents in to verify that he had in fact been blind by birth. And they're like, the parents like, well, we don't know anything about it, because they were afraid of the Jews. They were afraid that if they said this man cured him, that they would be thrown out, right? The parents didn't want to offend. They didn't want to get thrown out of the synagogue, because they're kind of like skeptical, They're still thinking, I don't know about this guy. But, they're starting to believe, because they know that their son, they really, they probably did believe, because they knew he had been blind, and all of a sudden he can see after this man, put the stuff on him. So they know what their son told him, and he had faith, which is why he was cured, because he had the faith. So they're willing to believe based on their son's testimony, right? But they still don't want to stick their necks out too far, the parent. So, but the Pharisees threw the man out. They threw him out because he did say, "This man cured me," and the Pharisees say, "Well, you're a sinner, and you're trying to teach us about this man, saying this man is the Christ." So they threw him out. But the man did believe, and Jesus said, "Yes, you said it. I am the Son of God." So then the man goes out, and he's, people were saying, "Oh, is this the man who was begging here, and now he can see?" So then people came to believe based on this man's testimony. So, it's this miracle. So for the song, and it was obvious. I don't remember the song. Mike and the Mechanics. Seeing is believing. Now, it's a perfect song. And then I read the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, this is great. So it was off their, this one only got to number 62 on the U.S. Billboard. But it was from their album Living Years, which was, the album got to number 13 on the Billboard album chart, Billboard. It came out in, October 24th, 1988, this album. And it was the third single. The Living Years was released March 25th, 1989. That one got to number 1, and that's the song. It was co-written, The Living Years was co-written by B.A. Robertson and Mike Rutherford from Genesis, right? Mike Rutherford. And it's ironic that they both had lost their fathers, recently, before the song came out. And they both had babies around the same time. And so the song was about their strained relationships with their fathers. They were boomers, they're boomers. And, also, but the new hope that, their newborns had given them. And it also caused them to reflect on their relationship with their fathers. So, there's this theme, there's kind of this, it's kind of a sad song, Living Years. It's moving, but it's full of regret and kind of, and it's a very boomer kind of theme. A lot of their songs here, I had to look some of the stuff up in the song because some of the references were from the 70s, and I was a little kid. I didn't know any of these references. Mostly they are things in politics, in the world, some of which I had heard. I had heard of, but not in detail. Like I didn't know what he was talking about. Okay, so in background, in September of '87, Mike Rutherford came off of the Genesis Invisible Touch tour, which is great. I had that cassette. And he started to write songs for the Mike and Mechanics album, this one. But he got writer's block. Now, October '87, I was just starting my first job, and that's when the market crashed. So there was something going on in that period of time between '87 and '89, astrologically. It was a powerful time. But his wife was having complications in her pregnancy. And at the same time, so it affected his writing. He was stressed out. But then the baby was born healthy and fine in November of '87. So that worked out okay. But, and then, so when he, having that experience affected this song. It's more hopeful than The Living Years. The Living Years, their fathers are dead. They can't do anything. But, here's this baby. So it's sort of, it's appropriate because it's sort of like a miracle. While Samuel, the baby, came to his parents when they had almost given up, they had faith that God would, make this happen, right? So it's about, believing in a dark time, right? Walking through that dark valley, when your father dies, and then you get a baby. So it's, it's light and dark. It's embracing the duality of life, walking through the dark valley and not being afraid, and knowing that your God is, going to be with you. So he writes this song about overcoming the skepticism of the world, right? And believing the power of the soul, the power of love, and the magic of the soul, right? He says that he's got a young rebel's sympathy. Jesus was a rebel, which is something people don't understand, right? At the time, he was shaking everything up. The old guard was, the Pharisees. So, the thing about that was that the Pharisees saw with their eyes, they had sight, but they were blind in terms of the spirit, right? Jesus said he came to bring sight to the blind and make the seeing not see, or point out those who did not see. Though they had sight, they could not see. They couldn't see, in other words, the spirit. They were blind to the ways, to the fact that Jesus was right in front of them and he was the future, right? They were so clinging to the, the past, and so skeptical and judgmental, right? So, and this is relevant today. You say, Zazoo, what does this have to do with me and now? I mean, just think about it, right? He says, do you believe what you see, is one of the lyrics in the song. And the first thing he says is, I believe in Jesus. At the time of Jesus, people were actually afraid to say that they believed in him, and especially after his death and his resurrection. People went into hiding. His own apostles had to go into hiding because they were afraid, right? But he says in this, Mike says in this song, they call you foolish. People call you foolish for believing, right? They think that you're, if you're not. It's a matter of straddling. I think I do this, straddling the worldly and the otherworldly is difficult. It's a tough balancing act, because to have your feet on the ground and your eyes on the sky and faith in your heart, love in your heart, is the ideal. And that's what I strive to do every day, is not to be, is to be in the world but not of the world. You see what I mean? Yes, you have to eat. Yes, you have to clothe yourself. Yes, you have to engage in some of the, you have to be knowledgeable. You have to observe what is going on, but you don't have to let it poison you. You don't have to take in the poison of the world. You can put up a shield around you, breathe, and you can surround yourself with, with light, and keep away, what does not serve you. Don't go there, right? Keep yourself as pure as possible while being in the world, and be grateful for all the things that that we do enjoy in the world. There's a lot to enjoy, and don't tune into to the fear and the lack mentality, right? And don't hang out with people who have a lack mentality, people who are cynical and jaded. sarcasm is a whole other thing. Sarcasm is absolutely necessary, especially if you're Gen X. You know, and when you think about our generation and what we've been through, it's a miracle just that we've survived to tell our jokes and our off-color humor that gets us, our dark humor that gets us through. See, that's the thing. I credit dark humor and sarcasm for getting me through just about everything. That's not to be confused with darkness. Dark humor, sarcasm, sometimes is necessary. So, there you go. You got to keep perspective, right? And humor is always welcome. So I'm going to go have my healthy paleo hot chocolate snack and my cashew butter. I got some of that nice yogi throat tea, which is good. I'll have some of that, especially after I've been talking a lot, It helps. And so, hey, happy St. Patty's Day. Whether or not you're Irish, everybody's Irish. Wear your green. And now St. Joseph's Day, my ex's birthday, happy birthday on Thursday, St. Joseph's Day. My ex-husband's birthday, and it was my grandmother's birthday, my grandfather's birthday, my Pepe's birthday was on St. Patrick's Day, and hers was 2 days later, the same year they were born, 2 days apart. So I always think about them this time of year. I think they're watching me from above, giving me some blessings. So, yeah. So have a great week, and I think spring starts this week, so I think the snow might finally be over. If we're lucky, maybe. Take care. I'll be back next week, same place, different time. Top of the morning, and may the wind be at your back, the Irish blessing. Good luck, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.